God, what is going on? What? Oh, I think Moto likey.
I like 'em big, I like 'em chunky.
Hello, Moonlight fans. Thanks so much for clicking on this video. My name is Chris. Episode 4 of Moonlight has finally landed online, and let me tell you guys, if you've been following my channel, you know that Disney went ahead and let me see the first 4 episodes of Moonlight before the show premiered, and trust me, while I'm very grateful for that fact, I was also pissed that they ended the last episode that way with the hippo, and I would have to wait 5 weeks to find out what happens next. Imagine waking up and going to sleep with just the image of that hippo. You'd be fantasizing about her too.
I like 'em big.
But either way, what I'm going to do here for you guys is giving you my episode 4 breakdown of Moon Knight, giving you my reaction to what I thought of it, pointing out little Easter eggs here and there, trying to make sense of the madness going on screen. We do have a couple of comic book runs we could pull from, but the MCU always likes to put their own twist on it, so I feel like we really don't even know what's going on. But also leave me your thoughts and theories to what you think is happening, because I'm really curious to hear it. Alright, so jumping straight into this week's episode of Moon Knight.
Chris, I need you to summon the fuel.
Khonshu, I'm kind of busy right now.
Summon the fuel, Chris.
Fine. The fuel has been summoned! G Fuel has partnered up with Marvel Studios' Moon Knight to bring you a new flavor called Moonberry. If you're not laughing at that, you need to switch to your funny personality. If you go to the link in my description or use code 3CFilms30 at checkout when purchasing your Moonberry, you'll receive 30% off your order. And guys, let me tell you, you know here, I've been using G Fuel always to keep me energized and going when making videos. But it's always understandable not everyone needs to run off caffeine, and with Moonberry, it actually has 0 caffeine. Everyone knows all G Fuel products already have 0 sugar, but with this, it's 0 calorie, 0 sugar, 0 caffeine, yet it tastes excellent. It has electrolytes and vitamins to keep you focused throughout the day. So I definitely recommend Moonberry if you're someone who isn't all into caffeine but still wants something that tastes great and keeps you hydrated. So again, go use the link in my description or code 3CFilms at checkout. Purchase yourself some Moonberry G Fuel. You'll not only be supporting a great sponsor, but you'll be helping out my channel, and that means the world. Thank you again to G Fuel for sponsoring today's video. Alright, so episode 4 of Moon Knight picks off where we left off after Khonshu has gone ahead and messed with the sky so they can figure out where Ahmed is located. Stephen Grant is left unconscious on the ground while Layla is trying to wake him up until she gets attacked by a couple of Harrow's men. Thankfully, Layla is more than capable of taking care of herself, and then we fast forward to the location where they have learned that Ahmed has been buried. And honestly, I'm going to be fast forwarding a lot because I just want to get to those last 10 to 15 minutes because I definitely want to just splurge on that. A couple of interesting things that happen though before they actually go into the tomb is we have a conversation between Steven and Mark Spector here where Steven's kind of confused and upset, like, didn't you say if these powers went away, you would also disappear and I could have my body back? I feel like this confirms then that this version of Moon Knight always had the dissociative identity disorder, and somehow he's just lived with it without his other personalities knowing that they exist. Some of us thought that maybe this version of Moon Knight would just make it that once he got the powers of Moon Knight, then all these other personalities were created to kind of cope with that. But the other thing that's gotten people talking about this episode, other than the ending of course, is this whole situation going on with Steve pulling the moves on Mark's girl. I think this could actually be a very debatable topic that hopefully does not get too crazy. Morally speaking, is it okay for Stephen Grant to kiss the ex-wife of Mark Spector when they are technically in the same body, but they are different people? To me, I think it was easy for Layla to kind of go ahead and kiss Stephen Grant because it's almost like it's the nice side of Mark that she almost misses. You have to think all throughout their marriage and adventures, Mark has just been this very hard mercenary that probably doesn't express himself very well, and it was just kind of refreshing to get that from Steven. But I'm sure this is not going to make Mark happy once he finds out about it, because he's very protective of Layla, so protective in fact that Steven finally goes ahead and spills the bean that Mark is protecting Layla from Khonshu because Khonshu has his eyes on her to be the next avatar for Moon Knight. And I guess I can kind of understand Layla being upset that Mark spoke for her, but at the same time I feel like Mark is definitely doing Layla a favor. We've seen it's extremely torturous to have Khonshu just constantly talking in your head, demanding orders even if it comes at the gift of superpowers. But now that our characters are finally inside the tomb trying to explore it and locate Amit, we're treated to a couple of really creepy sequences involving this creature. This is the kind of stuff I would have loved to have seen a lot more of throughout the Moon Knight show, because you gotta think, this is now episode 4. We only have 2 episodes left. So seeing a scene like this go down where a person is literally being gutted, it's kind of intense, and we have to remind ourselves we're watching this on Disney Plus. But as a horror fan myself, I love how the scene escalated so far where Layla had to later confront this creature trying to stab her with the bone of his own arm. That's the stuff I want to see, Disney Plus. Keep it up. Honestly, just a great thrilling scene that is then interrupted by Harrow stepping in. This is where we got something that I think a lot of us could have seen coming a mile away once we found out that Layla's father was an archaeologist, and that's the revelation that at the same time Mark Spector was going ahead and doing his mercenary work, he was one of the people responsible for the death of Layla's father. Heck, it's even this direct event that later led them two to meet up and fall in love, where Mark could just never come to terms with telling her the truth because he fears it would mean losing her. But Mark is fully aware they just do not have the time to sit down and chat about this situation, that it needs to be explained at a later time, because this is when Harrow steps in. And not only does the man step in, he full out shoots Mark Spector and has him fall to the ground, where we believe he's dying, following his body into a transition that, I gotta admit, the first time I was watching this, I was extremely confused. I almost thought I sat on my remote and changed the channel or something. What we're looking at here is basically a rip-off Indiana Jones-like movie, and it's revealed that the explorer in this movie is actually named Stephen Grant. Not just that, but he has a British accent like the Stephen Grant, Oscar Isaac, that we've been following this entire time. This is then where the scene pulls back and it's revealed we're actually located in a mental asylum. And if you're someone who's been paying attention to the past couple episodes of Moon Knight, there is just Easter egg galore for every little small detail and thing that's happened in the previous episodes. So kind of listing things off before we explain what exactly is going off, this person right here holding up the bingo ball is Crawley, the same person we saw painted as the gold statue in the beginning episodes of Moon Knight. We see background actors that have been popping up throughout the Moon Knight episodes, one that is holding a Rubik's Cube that we saw Stephen Grant play with before bed. If you look at one of the employees of the asylum, they are actually the cop that showed up to Stephen Grant's doorstep that ultimately turned out to be a follower of Harrow. Stephen Grant's boss, Donna, is also a patient here at the asylum. Another worker at the hospital is handing out cupcakes. In the first episode, Stephen and Mark are driving a van filled with cupcakes. We see a drawing that very much resembles the head of Khonshu, as well as Stephen's goldfish right in his line of view. Now, even though a lot of this stuff is connected to stuff we saw with Stephen Grant, it is actually Mark Spector sitting and currently in control of the body. He's even friends with Layla, who's also a patient in the hospital, eating a couple of marshmallows that we saw at the beginning of the last episode. But probably the coolest little touch is when Mark Spector tries to get up and walk, a little Moon Knight toy falls to his side. So okay, what exactly is going on here and what is Marvel hinting at it? This is all taking major inspiration from one of the most popular Moon Knight runs right now, written by Jeff Lemire. In this run for Moon Knight, it basically deals with the same thing. We find Mark Spector in an asylum surrounded by things that remind him of his past adventures and past identities. It's a fan favorite story because the whole time it keeps you wondering, okay, so was Moon Knight actually never a superhero? Was all of this made up the entire time and Mark Spector was actually just a mental patient making all this up in his head because he's just sitting in a chair all day? Even the conversation Mark Spector has here with Ethan Hawke's character, kind of his therapist, also directly pulled from the comics where they're kind of running through his past adventures and connecting dots. But I think this is then where the comic run and the MCU version of the show are gonna take their own separate path. Because in the comic run, it's kind of later revealed that everything going on was a construct made up by Khonshu. It was a way for him to kind of get Mark Spector to go ahead and agree to giving up his body to Khonshu because he was dying at the time. Although it could be possible that this entire storyline and everything going on was made up by Khonshu to kind of take better control of Mark and use him as his avatar, I feel like maybe something different will be going on here. Because not for a second do I believe this is how the show will end and they'll just explain it the way that Moon Knight was never a real superhero and it was all in Mark Spector's head. If anything, whenever Mark actually goes ahead and runs away from a bunch of the orderlies and we start to see the room kind of shift a little bit gravity-wise, wise, that reminds me a lot like the scenes from Inception. If you remember, in Inception, they go ahead and have little battles inside their minds in their dreams, but if they're moving outside of the reality, sometimes that same gravity will take into effect in their minds. So I feel like Mark Spector currently in the real world is on his deathbed, is probably being transported to a hospital or somewhere else, and these little movements that we're seeing is just gravity taking effect on him. I think it's made even more clear that this is all happening within the mind of Mark Spector because he stumbles upon a room, almost like a subsection within your mind, where he locates Stephen Grant and frees him from a coffin. And I gotta admit, this is just kind of cool to be able to see Stephen and Mark hug each other, interact. They have their own separate bodies and they don't have to bicker about who's in control. They can just work together. But speaking of other doorways within his mind, we get the biggest hint yet to the third personality, Jake Lockley, which Moon Knight fans are just thirsting for now. This has to be like the final tease for Jake Lockley. Like, there is no doubt in my mind he's out there, he exists, he's clearly trapped right now in that tomb, but because Mark and Steven have not met this other personality, they don't know to go free them. I actually wouldn't be surprised now if episode 5 of Moon Knight opens up with them filling the gaps of every time Jake Lockley took over and what he was doing, asking out that co-worker, stabbing those people over in Egypt, and maybe other things we were unaware of. But moving on from there, the big bombshell to end the episode is we get Steven and Mark opening a door where they come across a giant hippo with anthropomorphic traits. Now, the name of this Egyptian god is actually named Tart. They technically exist within Marvel Comics, but there really isn't any data or long history of the character, so Marvel has taken it upon themselves to give it a new identity and almost like a brand new character for the MCU. So with that in mind, there's not really a lot we can go ahead and infer and pick up on what exactly her role will be in Moon Knight. In actual Egyptian mythology, this god is known for warding off evil spirits. So maybe it could be explained that this is a colleague of Khonshu's that is almost like a failsafe in case one of his avatars ever die, so they constructed this little mind prism until they can be healed back up. Really, your guess is going to be as good as mine. The only other thing I have to mention with this, again, there's 2 episodes left. Marvel always has trouble sticking to the landing, ending their shows in a satisfying way. It feels like they still have so much more left to explain and do, but hopefully they can pull it off. But that is everything that happened with episode 4 of Moon Knight. Really exciting stuff, guys. I am so curious to what you guys think of this episode. Don't be forgetting to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, follow me on Twitter at 3C Films or on TikTok at 3C Films. But as always, I'm Chris. Take care.